Aliens tested a human colony, and it forged a new dawn. HFY Best Sci-Fi Stories. Landfall. Captain Lee Arlen stood at the edge of what had once been the command bridge of the U.S. Meridian. Now it served as a makeshift observatory overlooking their unintended home. 6 months had passed since the Generation ship's catastrophic landing on Alera 3, and the twisted metal skeleton of humanity's greatest achievement stretched across the valley floor like the bones of some ancient beast. "How many today?" she asked, not turning from the reinforced viewport that somehow had survived the crash. Dr. Marcus Webb approached with his daily report, footsteps echoing in the salvage chamber. 47 more out of cryo. That brings us to just over 8,000 awake. The rest, he paused, and Lee could hear the weight in his silence. The rest won't be waking up. She finished the thought he couldn't say aloud. 12,000 souls had begun this journey. The crash had claimed a third of them instantly, and the damaged cryosystems were failing one pod at a time. Through the viewport, Lee watched work crews dismantling sections of the ship's hull. Engineer Rosa Martinez had organized salvage operations with military precision, turning aerospace alloys into building materials and fusion reactors into power sources for their growing settlement. What the colonists called New Eden was rising from their ship's corpse, and somehow it felt like resurrection rather than burial. The Chen family's little girl took her first steps yesterday, Webb said quietly, on actual dirt. She's never known Earth gravity. Lee smiled at that. Little Mei Chen represented something precious, the first generation to call this alien world a home. The children adapted faster than anyone expected, treating Alera 3's purple-leafed forests and crystalline streams as natural as Earth's blue skies once seemed. "Captain," came a voice from the communications console. Tech specialist Jake Reeves looked up from his jury-rigged equipment. "I'm picking up some strange interference patterns, regular intervals, almost like scanning sweeps." Lee crossed to his station, studying the wavering displays. "How long?" "Started about a week ago. Could be natural phenomena. This system's star throws off all kinds of radiation, but the pattern's too consistent." Jake adjusted his headphones. "It's like someone's watching us." The thought should have been alarming, but Lee found herself oddly comforted by it. They weren't alone in the universe, and if something was observing them, at least they'd been left alive to observe. "Keep monitoring it," she said. "And Jake, don't mention this to the general population yet. We've got enough to worry about." Outside their salvage command center, New Eden buzzed with activity. Families worked together, building homes from ship materials and local stone. Children played games that mixed Earth traditions with discoveries from their new world. Gardens flourished where Dr. Sarah Kim had learned to blend Earth seeds with Alera 3's mineral-rich soil. Lee had expected despair, panic, the breakdown of civilization. Instead, she'd witnessed something remarkable: humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender. Every day brought new innovations, small victories over an alien environment that should have killed them all. Her community chirped. "Captain, this is Martinez. We've got the water purification system online, and the first modular housing units are ready for families. We're not just surviving anymore, we're building something permanent." Lee looked out over their growing settlement as Alera 3's twin suns began setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. "Copy that, Rosa. Good work, all of you." What she didn't know was that high above them, hidden in the planet's magnetosphere, compound eyes were watching every movement, recording every conversation, analyzing every human decision with cold, calculating precision. The observers, Veshtari adjusted his sensory array and focused on the primitive settlement spreading across the valley floor. The human colony, designation New Eden, according to their intercepted communications, continued to defy Chironok's predictions with their chaotic survival methods. Observer Prime, came the sharp harmonics of Fleet Commander Kexazaral from the cloaked vessel above. Your periodic reports grow increasingly irregular. These mammals continue to exist despite optimal elimination parameters. Veshtari's four arms moved in precise coordination across his analysis console, each manipulator tracking different data streams. Confirmed, Fleet Commander. Human survival rate exceeds calculated probability by a factor of 7.3. Their behavioral patterns resist standard xenobiological models. The Chironoks had been watching these crashed aliens for 180 rotations of the local star. Standard protocol demanded the elimination of any species that might contaminate Chironok's space with their chaotic thinking. But the humans kept presenting anomalies that challenged established science. Through his instruments, Veshtari observed the human female designated Martinez, teaching a group of juveniles to operate fusion welders. The teaching method violated every principle of efficient knowledge transfer. Instead of direct neural download, the humans used demonstration and practice, wasting enormous amounts of time and energy. Yet their success rate in technical skill acquisition exceeded Chironok standards by measurable margins. Fleet Commander requests permission to extend observation period. Veshtari transmitted. Human social structures continue producing unexpected optimization results despite apparent inefficiency. Kexazaral's response carried undertones of impatience. Explain specificity of requested extension, Observer Prime. Veshtari called up his most puzzling data set. Human individual, designated Dr. Kim, has achieved agricultural yields exceeding baseline Alera 3 soil capacity by 37%. Method involves companion planting with native species, a technique our agricultural algorithms classify as wasteful resource allocation. He switched displays to show the human medical facility. Human healer Dr. Webb combines therapeutic chemistry with verbal comfort provision. Logical analysis suggests the verbal component should have no physiological effect, yet patient recovery rates improve by measurable factors when this technique is employed. Most confusing of all was what the humans called art. Veshtari watched colonist Maya Patel teaching children to create visual representations using pigments extracted from local flora. The activity served no survival function, consumed valuable resources, and produced no measurable benefit. Yet colonies with higher art production showed improved psychological stability and innovation rates. These observations require extended analysis period to establish cause-effect relationships, Veshtari concluded. Human behavior patterns may contain optimization techniques unknown to Chironok's science. Fleet Commander Kexazaral's silence stretched across several minutes, an eternity in Chironok's communication. Permission granted for extended observation. Duration, 60 additional rotations. Prepare elimination protocols for immediate implementation upon study completion. Veshtari acknowledged the order while privately hoping 60 rotations would be sufficient to understand what made these chaotic mammals so remarkably effective at survival. Below him, the human settlement continued expanding. Children played games that seemed to have no purpose. Adults gathered in groups for conversations that accomplished no specific tasks. Families shared meals despite having individual nutritional requirements that could be met more efficiently through separate consumption. Every human action seemed designed to waste energy and reduce efficiency. Yet somehow, their colony thrived, while Chironok's calculations suggested they should have perished within 30 rotations of the crash. Veshtari began composing his detailed observations, unaware that the humans' greatest test was still to come, and that their response to it would challenge everything the Chironoks believed about intelligence, civilization, and the value of illogical hope. Growing strength. 8 months after landfall, Captain Lee Arlen walked the morning patrol route around New Eden's perimeter, marveling at how much had changed. What began as scattered shelters and salvage piles had grown into a genuine town. Solar collectors gleamed on rooftops made from hull plating. Gardens produced hybrid crops that somehow thrived better than pure earth varieties. She paused at the workshop, where 12-year-old Tommy Martinez, Rosa's nephew, was learning to operate a 3D printer they'd salvaged from the ship's engineering bay. The boy had never seen a traditional factory, but he understood molecular assembly with intuitive ease that impressed even the adults. "Morning, Captain," called Dr. Sarah Kim from her experimental plots. "Want to see something amazing?" Lee approached the agricultural section, where Kim had been testing earth plants alongside native Alera 3 species. The results looked like something from a botanical fantasy. Tomatoes grew twice their normal size, supported by symbiotic vines that sparkled with crystalline deposits. Wheat stalks intertwined with local grasses that somehow enriched the grain's protein content. "The native plants aren't just compatible," Kim explained excitedly. "They're actively helping our crops succeed. It's like the whole ecosystem wants to cooperate instead of compete." At the medical center, Dr. Webb was examining Maria Santos, one of the colonists who'd been injured during salvage operations. "Bone density is actually improving," he told Lee quietly. "Whatever's in this world's air and water, it's having beneficial effects on human physiology. We're not just adapting, we're thriving." The observation puzzled Lee. Every survey had suggested Alera 3 would be marginal for human habitation. Instead, their bodies seemed to be responding, as if this world had been designed for them. "Captain," called Jake Reeves from the communications center, "those scanning patterns are getting stronger. Whatever's up there is paying a lot more attention to us lately." Lee studied the readouts. The signals showed increasing intensity and complexity, as if their unseen observers were conducting more detailed analysis. "Any response to our own transmissions?" "Nothing. But Captain," Jake hesitated, "I don't think they're hostile. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead by now. The scanning patterns seem more like scientific curiosity." That afternoon, Lee convened the settlement's leadership council in the community center they'd built from shuttle cargo bays. Rosa Martinez, Dr. Webb, Dr. Kim, and Chief of Security David Park sat around a table made from a repurposed navigation console. "We need to discuss our situation," Lee began. "Population's up to 9,000 awake. Infrastructure is solid. Food production exceeds current needs. By every measure, we're succeeding beyond our wildest projections." "So what's the problem?" Rosa asked. David Park answered, "We're too successful. This world should have killed us. Instead, it's practically helping us thrive. Either we're incredibly lucky or something else is going on." Dr. Webb nodded. "The medical data supports David's concern. Human health indicators are improving across all age groups. Children born here show enhanced immune responses and cognitive development. It's statistically impossible without external factors." "You think someone's helping us?" Dr. Kim asked. "Or testing us," Lee said grimly. "Jake's been tracking scanning signals for months. We're definitely being watched." The question is whether our observers are benevolent or just curious. They spent the next hour discussing possibilities and preparations. If their unseen watchers were friendly, first contact protocols would be crucial. If hostile, they needed defensive plans that could protect 9,000 civilians using salvaged equipment. As evening approached, Lee walked the settlement streets, watching families share meals and children play in groups that mixed Earth games with new activities they'd invented. Music drifted from the plaza, where Maya Patel was teaching anyone interested to play instruments crafted from local materials. The scene was peaceful, hopeful, almost idyllic, but Lee couldn't shake the feeling that they were living in a calm before a storm, that their real test was still coming. Mounting concern. From his position aboard the observation vessel, Veshtari watched the human settlement with growing unease. Not unease about the humans themselves, but about what his own superiors planned to do with them. Observer Prime, Fleet Commander Kexazaral's harmonics carried dangerous undertones. Your reports continue to lack acceptable conclusions. High Command grows impatient with your philosophical observations. Veshtari's sensory spines flattened against his carapace, an involuntary stress response he thought he'd trained out of himself years ago. Fleet Commander, human behavioral patterns require additional study period. Their survival methods challenge fundamental assumptions about intelligent species development. Elaborate on specific challenges to Shiranok's understanding. Veshtari called up his latest observations. Human individual Maya Patel dedicates significant daily effort to teaching creative expression, activities that serve no survival function. Yet settlements with higher creative activity show improved problem-solving capacity and psychological resilience. He switched to social behavior patterns. Humans regularly sacrifice individual advantage for group benefit. Shiranok's theory predicts this should weaken overall survival probability, but observed results show opposite correlation. Most puzzling was human child rearing. Human juveniles are granted excessive freedom to explore and make errors. Shiranok's education protocols emphasize efficiency through direct information transfer and strict behavioral conditioning. Yet human juveniles demonstrate superior adaptability and innovation capacity compared to Shiranok's young, trained through optimal methods. Fleet Commander Kexazaral processed this data with increasing agitation. Observer Prime, your conclusions suggest Shiranok's civilization is inferior to primitive mammalian social structures. Not inferior, Fleet Commander. Different. Humans appear to have developed optimization strategies through apparent chaos that our logical approaches have not achieved. The communication channel fell silent for nearly a full rotation period, unprecedented in Shiranok's military protocol. When Kexazaral finally responded, his harmonics carried new orders. Sati, Observer Prime, High Command has authorized final assessment protocols. You will implement comprehensive stress testing of the human colony. Survival under maximum pressure will determine whether their methods have genuine value or result from environmental luck. Veshtari felt his compound eyes dilating with alarm. Fleet Commander, request clarification of stress testing parameters. Weather modification systems will create Category 5 atmospheric disturbance lasting 72 hours. Predator behavior alteration will increase local fauna aggression by a factor of 8. Seismic destabilization will trigger ground tremor events. If humans survive with colony integrity intact, they will be evaluated for potential contact. If they fail, elimination protocols will be implemented immediately. Veshtari stared at the peaceful settlement below. Children were playing in the plaza, while adults worked on expanding the community center. Dr. Webb was treating patients in his medical facility. Engineer Martinez was teaching teenagers to repair fusion reactors. Fleet Commander, these tests may result in significant human casualties. Acceptable parameter: species that cannot survive optimal challenge conditions represent contamination risk to Chironox space. Implement testing protocols in 48 hours. Prepare elimination systems for immediate deployment upon test failure. The channel closed, leaving Veshtari alone with his observations and his growing doubt about everything he'd been taught regarding superior civilization. He watched human families sharing evening meals, their conversations ranging from technical discussions to what they called jokes, verbal constructions that served no informational purpose but somehow strengthened social bonds. Children asked endless questions that any Chironox would dismiss as inefficient curiosity. Yet these chaotic interactions produced innovation rates that exceeded Chironox standards. Veshtari began preparing the testing systems while privately hoping these remarkable mammals would prove their worth. If they failed, he would have to watch their elimination. If they succeeded, perhaps the Chironox could learn something from their illogical approach to existence. The greatest test in human history was about to begin, and neither species fully understood what was at stake. The storm. The first sign of trouble came at dawn when meteorologist Dr. Elena Vasquez burst into the command center with readings that made no sense. "Captain, we've got a weather system forming that violates every law of atmospheric physics I know." Captain Lee Arlen studied the swirling mass on their jury-rigged weather monitors. The storm system appeared to be forming from nothing, pulling energy from sources their instruments couldn't identify. "How bad are we talking?" "Category 5 hurricane winds, but the formation pattern is impossible. It's like someone's building a storm to test our defenses." Vasquez paused, realizing what she'd just said. "Captain, I don't think this is natural." Lee activated the settlement's emergency alert system. "All residents of New Eden, this is Captain Arlen. We have a severe weather event approaching. Implement Storm Protocol 7 immediately. This is not a drill." Across the settlement, 9,000 colonists moved with practiced efficiency. Families secured their homes while work crews reinforced critical infrastructure. Children were moved to the most structurally sound buildings while adults prepared to defend everything they'd built. Dr. Webb organized medical teams for expected casualties. Engineer Martinez coordinated power system shutdowns to prevent overloads. Chief Park deployed security teams to watch for structural failures and coordinate rescue operations. "Captain," called Jake Reeves from his communications station. "Those scanning signals just spiked off the charts. Whatever's been watching us is paying very close attention right now." The storm struck with devastating force that defied all predictions. Winds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour tore at their buildings, while lightning struck with unnatural precision. The hybrid crops that had thrived for months were flattened in minutes. In the medical center, Dr. Webb worked desperately to treat colonists injured by flying debris and structural collapses. "I need more hands," he called out over the howling wind. "Maya, can you assist with triage?" Artist Maya Patel, who had never received medical training, found herself bandaging wounds and comforting injured children. Her gentle manner and creative problem-solving helped keep patients calm, while Webb performed emergency procedures with tools that had never been designed for field hospitals. At the power station, Rosa Martinez and her team fought to keep essential systems online. "We're losing generators faster than we can repair them," she reported to Arlen. At this rate, we'll lose life support in the residential sections. Tommy Martinez, Rosa's 12-year-old nephew, appeared at her side, carrying tools. "Aunt Rosa, I can crawl through the maintenance tunnels you can't fit in. Tell me what needs fixing." "Absolutely not. You're staying in the shelter. Everyone's working to save the colony," Tommy replied, with determination that reminded Rosa of his deceased parents. "I can help. You just have to let me." Reluctantly, Rosa began directing the boy through maintenance procedures that would have challenged trained adults. Tommy's intuitive understanding of the jury-rigged systems proved invaluable as he repaired connections in spaces too small for adults to access. The storm raged for 3 days. Each morning brought new crises, as their carefully constructed settlement suffered damage that should have been fatal. Yet somehow they endured. Dr. Kim worked with colonist families to save what remained of their agricultural systems, replanting damaged crops in underground growing chambers hastily constructed from cargo containers. "We'll have fresh food within weeks," she promised families worried about starvation. But the greatest challenge came on the storm's final day, when the community center, sheltering nearly 2,000 colonists, began showing structural failure. Steel beams groaned under impossible pressure, while cracks appeared in the reinforced walls. "We need to evacuate now," Chief Park announced. "The whole building's coming down." But the storm's fury made evacuation deadly. Anyone caught outside would be killed by debris and lightning strikes that seemed to target anything that moved. That was when old Henrik Larsson stepped forward. The 78-year-old former demolition expert had been quietly helping with construction, sharing skills learned over decades of dangerous work on Earth. "I can bring down the unstable sections safely," Henrik told Arlen, "but someone needs to stay behind to trigger the charges at the right moment." Arlen understood immediately what he was offering. "Henrik, there has to be another way. Captain, I've lived my life. These kids deserve a chance to live theirs." Henrik's weathered hands were steady as he gathered explosive charges from their mining supplies. "Just make sure you remember me when you're telling stories about how we built this place." Henrik Larsson worked methodically through the collapsing building, placing charges with the precision of decades of experience. As the roof began its final collapse, he triggered the explosives in a sequence that brought the building down safely away from the evacuation routes. The explosion could be heard over the storm's fury, and every colonist understood what it meant. Their oldest member had given his life to save 2,000 others. When the storm finally passed, the colonists emerged to find half their settlement destroyed, but they also found something else. They had survived together, grown stronger through shared suffering, and proven that human cooperation could overcome forces that should have killed them all. Unknown to them, their greatest test had been artificial, and high above, alien observers were reconsidering everything they thought they knew about civilization, intelligence, and the value of illogical hope. Paradigm shift. Beshtari stared at his instruments in stunned silence as the artificial storm dissipated over the human settlement. Every predictive model had suggested the colony would suffer catastrophic failure under such extreme conditions. Instead, they had not merely survived. They had demonstrated capabilities that challenged fundamental Chironok's assumptions about intelligence itself. Observer Prime, Fleet Commander Kexazaral's harmonics carried barely controlled agitation. Report on human survival statistics. Colony integrity maintained at 87%. Veshtari replied, his forearms trembling as they worked the controls. Casualty rate significantly below predicted parameters. infrastructure damage extensive but rapidly being repaired using innovative adaptation methods. He called up recordings of the elderly human who had sacrificed himself to save thousands of others. Fleet Commander, individual Henrik Larsson, deliberately terminated his own existence to preserve group survival. This behavior contradicts all logical self-preservation protocols. Explain the tactical value of this action. No tactical value according to Chironok's analysis. Pure survival logic suggests the individual should have preserved himself and accepted group casualties as acceptable losses. Instead, his sacrifice enabled the survival of 2,247 individuals, including 412 juveniles. Veshtari switched to recordings of the human child who had risked his life repairing critical systems during the storm. Juvenile Tommy Martinez entered life-threatening situations to maintain colony infrastructure. Age and physical capacity should have disqualified him from technical duties, yet his contributions were essential to overall survival. Most remarkable were the social dynamics during crisis. Instead of reverting to individual survival behavior, the humans had increased their cooperation. Medical personnel worked beyond exhaustion, treating others. Engineers shared critical expertise freely. Even their artists had contributed to survival efforts using creative problem-solving approaches. Fleet Commander, human performance under stress testing demonstrates capabilities our models classify as impossible. Their emotional bonding creates group effectiveness that exceeds the sum of individual contributions. Kexazarl processed this data while simultaneously reviewing High Command's elimination protocols. The contradictions were troubling. How could a species deemed primitive show such remarkable resilience? Observer Prime, prepare for final assessment phase. Deploy predator enhancement protocols. If humans can survive coordinated wildlife attacks while rebuilding from storm damage, contact evaluation may be warranted. But as Veshtari prepared the biological enhancement systems, something unprecedented occurred. His compound eyes registered movement from the human settlement that made no tactical sense. Fleet Commander, humans are singing. Explain this observation. Veshtari focused his senses on the settlement's central plaza, where hundreds of colonists had gathered despite the devastation around them. They were producing coordinated vocal sounds, music, while holding small flames in some kind of memorial ceremony. They are honoring the deceased individual through communal artistic expression, Veshtari reported with growing confusion. This activity serves no survival function and expends energy required for reconstruction efforts. Yet biometric readings suggest the ceremony is reducing stress indicators and improving group psychological cohesion. Through his instruments, he watched Captain Arlen address the gathered colonists. Her words spoke of loss, sacrifice, and determination to build something worthy of Henrik Larsson's memory. Children who had never known the deceased man wept alongside adults who considered him family. The emotional response strengthens rather than weakens their social bonds, Veshtari observed. Grief appears to be increasing their motivation for cooperative reconstruction efforts. Fleet Commander Kexazarl fell silent for nearly an hour, an unprecedented delay in Chironok's communication protocols. When he finally responded, his harmonics carried new undertones. Observer Prime, postpone predator enhancement protocols. High Command requires complete behavioral analysis before proceeding with contact or elimination decisions. Understood, Fleet Commander. As the human memorial ceremony continued below, Veshtari found himself experiencing something his species had evolved beyond millennia ago. curiosity about beings fundamentally different from himself. These chaotic mammals might hold answers to questions the Chironaux had forgotten they didn't know how to ask. The decision about humanity's fate would depend on whether his superiors could accept that illogical hope might be more powerful than perfect reasoning. Rebuilding. 2 weeks after the storm, New Eden looked like a construction zone filled with organized chaos. Captain Lee Arlen walked through the settlement's main thoroughfare, amazed at how quickly her people had transformed destruction into opportunity for improvement. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Sarah Kim from the agricultural sector. She led Arlen to an area that had been completely flattened by the storm. Instead of the neat, organized plots they'd maintained before, Kim had created something that looked more like a natural ecosystem. "I realized we'd been thinking too much like Earth farmers," Kim explained. "After watching how the native plants helped our crops, I decided to design growing areas that mimic local ecology. Production rates are already 30% higher than our pre-storm levels." Engineer Rosa Martinez approached with blueprints for the new community center. "We're not just rebuilding, we're upgrading." Tommy's been helping design spaces that can serve multiple functions. The kid has an intuitive grasp of structural engineering that puts some adults to shame. 12-year-old Tommy Martinez looked up from a scale model made from salvaged materials. "We can make the roof collapse inward during emergencies instead of outward. That way, debris falls into the center, where no one's standing, instead of crushing the evacuation routes." Dr. Webb joined them with medical reports that defied explanation. "Recovery rates from storm injuries are exceeding anything I've seen. Broken bones are healing 40% faster than Earth normal. Psychological trauma symptoms are actually decreasing instead of worsening over time." "It's the community support," suggested Maya Patel, who had been helping families cope with loss through art therapy sessions. "People aren't processing trauma alone, they're healing together." Arlen studied the activity around them. Children played games, incorporating lessons they'd learned during the storm. Teenagers worked alongside adults on reconstruction projects, their contributions valued rather than merely tolerated. Elderly colonists shared skills and stories that strengthened social bonds across age groups. "Jake, any word from our observers?" Arlen asked the communications specialist. "Scanning patterns have changed," Jake replied. "Less intensive, but more focused. It's like they're studying specific behaviors instead of general surveillance." That evening, the settlement held its first concert since before the storm. Maya Patel had organized musicians, using instruments crafted from salvaged materials and local resources. The music blended Earth traditions with new compositions inspired by their experiences on Ilera 3. Families gathered in the rebuilt plaza, sharing food and stories, while children played between the seated adults. The scene was peaceful, hopeful, and utterly human in its chaotic warmth. "You know what I realized today?" Dr. Webb said to Arlen as they watched the concert. "We're not the same people who crashed here 10 months ago. We've become something new. Still human, but adapted to this world in ways that go beyond just physical survival." Arlen nodded. "We've learned to cooperate with our environment instead of just controlling it. Maybe that's why we're thriving instead of merely surviving." What she didn't know was that high above them, alien observers were reaching the same conclusion through their own analysis. The humans had demonstrated something the Chironaux had lost in their pursuit of perfect efficiency: the ability to find strength through apparent weakness, hope through loss, and unity through diversity. The greatest test was yet to come, but it would not involve artificial storms or enhanced predators. Instead, it would require both species to risk everything on the possibility that cooperation might be more valuable than conquest. The decision. In the observation vessel's command center, Veshtari presented his final analysis to the assembled Chiranox leadership. Fleet Commander Kexazarl, High Command Analyst Zithkalar, and Elder Counselor Vexathara reviewed data streams that challenged every assumption their civilization held about intelligence and survival. Human colony survival probability under extreme stress conditions, 93.7%. Veshtari reported. Reconstruction efficiency exceeds Chiranox engineering standards by measurable margins. Social cohesion strengthened rather than weakened by crisis conditions. Elder Counselor Vexathara, whose carapace bore the scars of 3 centuries of military service, studied the recordings with growing perplexity. Observer Prime, explain how primitive mammals achieved superior performance using inferior technology. Honored Elder, human problem-solving methodology combines logical analysis with emotional intuition, creating hybrid solutions that exceed purely rational approaches. Their willingness to sacrifice individual advantage for group benefit generates cooperative capabilities our models classify as theoretically impossible. Veshtari displayed recordings of Tommy Martinez risking his life to repair critical systems. Juvenile humans contribute to survival efforts despite physical limitations. Rather than being protected as inefficient resource drains, their participation strengthens overall group capability. High Command Analyst Zithkalar raised a crucial concern. These observations suggest Chiranox social optimization protocols are flawed. You propose that emotional chaos produces better results than logical order. Atlas, not chaos, analyst, complexity. Human emotions appear to be advanced information processing systems that generate solutions logical analysis cannot achieve. Their art and music serve as psychological maintenance protocols that improve cognitive function. Veshtari switched to medical data. Human healing rates on Ilera 3 exceed baseline parameters. Their cooperative care methods combine chemistry with emotional support, achieving recovery statistics superior to pure technological approaches. Fleet Commander Kexazarl had remained silent throughout the presentation, processing implications that challenged his understanding of military doctrine. Observer Prime, if human methods are superior to Chiranox protocols, why has our civilization achieved technological advancement while theirs remained primitive? Different optimization strategies, Fleet Commander. Chiranox development prioritized technological efficiency and social control. Humans appear to prioritize adaptability and cooperative innovation. Both approaches achieved survival, but through fundamentally different pathways. Elder Counselor Vexathara considered this analysis. You recommend contact rather than elimination. Honored Elder, I recommend mutual learning exchange. Humans could benefit from Chiranox technology and scientific knowledge. Chiranox could benefit from human social optimization and creative problem-solving methodologies. The command center fell silent as the 3 senior officers processed data that undermined everything they'd been taught about superior civilization. If the primitive mammals possessed capabilities the Chiranox had lost, what did that mean for their understanding of progress and evolution? Observer Prime, Elder Vexathara finally spoke. Prepare first contact protocols, but maintain elimination systems as backup option. We will test these humans' response to peaceful contact before making final determinations. High Command Analyst Zithkalar added a crucial constraint. Contact will be limited to minimal personnel. If humans demonstrate hostility or attempt to acquire Chironok's technology through aggressive means, immediate sterilization will follow. Veshtarii acknowledged the orders, while privately hoping these remarkable mammals would prove worthy of cooperation rather than conquest. The next few days would determine whether two species could bridge the gap between logical efficiency and emotional creativity. The greatest first contact in galactic history was about to begin, and neither side fully understood whether they were taking the first steps toward alliance or mutual destruction. Admiral Seren stared at the holodisplay, the alien hive's tendrils crawling across systems like veins under diseased skin. The room had fallen silent. No one dared breathe. "We're not just up against another empire," she said, voice low but steady. "We're up against a mind, an evolving, devouring intelligence." Rivers clenched his jaw. "Then let's see what happens when it tastes something it can't swallow." The room stirred. The plan wasn't ready, the odds weren't good, but humanity had never cared about either. They had a choice to make, and Earth never ran from first contact, not anymore. The mission begins. Story continues in part 2. Don't miss what comes next.